Sorry, I need to wait for a moment. My TikTok live studio, there's some update I have to do before I can use it. So let's just wait for a moment. Okay, finally. There's one more step. Oh my gosh, what's going on? Okay, let me just double check. How come it doesn't show? Why it doesn't show my screen? Oh, okay. Wow. The YouTube live streaming, the delay is really so much delay. Okay, finally. Let's see. Go live. Hey, how come it still show my last? How come it still show my last live info? Okay, so today we are not talking about ifs and loops. We are talking about functions. Okay, functions. Okay. Okay, I hope it's using the correct live comment. Okay. Okay, let's start. Okay, so today we are going to talk about functions. Last time we talked about ifs and loops. Okay, now imagine this. If I have a bakery shop, right, which means there's nobody here. So let me see. Okay, since there's nobody here, let me see if I can go back to my... Okay, there's someone joined. Okay, okay, so let me go back to my... Okay, okay, so suppose if I have a shop, which means I need to calculate my profit at the end of every month, right? So maybe my rental, let's say my rental is 5,000, right? Then I'll calculate, oh, for January, I'll do my revenue 1 equal to, let's just say is 10,000, okay? Then my operating cost is 3,000, okay? Then now at the end of January, I need to calculate my profit for January. It's going to be my revenue 1 minus my operating cost and minus my rental. Okay, so I need to do this calculation, right? Then it comes to February, I need to do the same calculation. So I'll just copy paste. Yeah, copy paste, but this time it's revenue 2. Operating cost 1, operating cost 2. Maybe February, I did a little more. Okay, 12,000. Okay, operating costs also increase a little bit, become 4,000, right? So January is everything starts with 1. February is profit 2 equal to revenue 2 minus operating cost 2. Now March, I need to do the same, right? So at the end of every month, I need to repeat the same calculation, which is very troublesome. Now I don't want to do this, okay? What I want to do is I'm going to come up with a formula. So every time, after every month, I'll just use a formula to calculate. Okay, so the formula is actually a function. So I can define this function, which is to calculate the profit. Okay, if you give me a revenue, you give me an operating cost, and give me a rental. Right? If you give me all these 3, I'm going to calculate for you. So I'm going to print profit. Okay, let's not print a line, just print a number. I'm going to print this. Revenue minus cost minus rental. That's my profit. Right? Now what I'm going to do is profit 1 the profit for January will equal to, I'll just call this function. I call this function using all the numbers for January. For February, I'll call the same function using the numbers for February. So this is a function. Function is like, you can think of this as a formula, right? It's a formula. Every time if you call this function, give me these three numbers, I will do this for you. It's kind of formula. So you don't have to repeat at the end of every month, right? End of January, do this, February, do this, March, do again. It will make your code a lot easier to manage, right? Let's say if now because my business is not good enough, I decided to put in some marketing budget, right? So maybe I'll just change here, right? So I can just put marketing cost. Now I just minus marketing cost from my revenue when I calculate profit, right? So all I need to change is just the function because this is where the formula is. If we don't use a function, like in this scenario, I need to minus the marketing cost here. And here I need to minus the marketing cost again. That means I need to change the calculation for every month. It's a lot of work, right? And if you miss 1 month, you will get the wrong number for that month. So which is not smart. That's why we use functions. A function is like a template. Every time you want to do the same thing, you just call that function. Okay. Now I want to show you a simple function. Okay. So we can do a simple function. Maybe I'll just call it hello. Okay. If you give me a name, what does it do? It will print hello followed by the name. Okay, this is a simple function. If I run this, okay, it's connecting. If you run it for the first time, right, it will need to connect to the Python engine, which takes some time. Okay, now the running finish. And you can see there's no result. How come there's no result? I asked the function to print, right? Why there's no result? Because this is a definition. So DEF is actually defined. It's a definition that I'm going to tell you that every time you use hello followed by a name, I'm going to do this. It's just a definition. So it doesn't do anything. Okay? If you want to see a result, you need to call this function. What do you mean by call the function? Meaning I'll put the name of the function. The name is hello, right? And inside the bracket, I need to give a name. So I'll put bracket. Maybe I'll just put Mary. Okay, this is called call the function. Call the function meaning I'm going to use the function. So run this. Okay, it will print hello Mary because this hello function will print hello followed by name, right? That's why when you call the function, it will give you hello Mary. So this is to call the function. Okay? So this is definition. Definition of the function, and after that you call the function. Right, so this function, I print something. And inside the bracket, I have this name. Okay, name is called a parameter. Okay, parameter. So what you put in the bracket, that's a parameter. You can use it inside your function. Now let's have another example where we can put in two parameters. Okay, so I can define, let's say this time I want to calculate the sum. Okay, if you give me A and B, okay, and what this function does is it will print A plus B. So I define a function. The name of the function is called sum. It has two parameters. And what it does is it's going to add up these two numbers and print the result. Again, if I run this, you won't see any result, right? Because this is just a definition. If I want to really do the calculation, I need to call the function. So how do I call the function? The name of the function and bracket. I need to give it some numbers, right? Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now if I run this, it will print the result because this sum is going to add up these two numbers and print it out. Right? So these are parameters. And this function, I have two parameters. Okay, so this is print. Besides print, you can also return. Okay, what do I mean by return? I'll change the function a little bit. Change this sum function a little bit. Okay, And so I will give it a different name. Okay, so I'll call it sum2. Instead of print, wow, you see, Google Colab is so smart. It already give me return. Instead of print, I'm going to return. Okay, so sum2 is another function. It also has two parameters, A and B, and it's going to return A plus B. So what is return? Return, if you think about, if I borrow a book from a library, right? And after several days, I need to return the book. When I return the book, meaning I give the book back to the library, right? So return meaning I give something back. Same here. So if I return A plus B, which means I will calculate A plus B, I will give the result back to you. Okay, because I give you back the result. So you can use a variable to catch the result, and you can use the result. Maybe you use a result to do further calculations, or you use a result somewhere else. Okay, so let's see. If I want to use this function, I'll use a variable result equal to sum2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, okay, 5, 6, 7, never mind. Okay, so because this sum2 is going to return, which means it will add up these two numbers. And after that, it will pass the result back. And I use this variable to catch the result. Okay, let me just check the messages. I saw there are some messages, but somehow my window is, okay, I think it's shown on my second window. Let me put it back here. Oh, this is wonderful. Thank you, Elevation FX. Okay, so I can calculate another one. Maybe I'll do result 2 equal to sum2. This time let's do 5, 6, 7, 7, 8, 9. Right? Because sum2 returns, I can do another calculation. Then I can use a different variable to catch the result. Okay, now I have two results. Right? I can continue. Maybe this time I want to print result times result 2. So run this. Oh, there's an error. Let's see where's the error. Sum2 is not defined. Oh, okay. Just now after we write this function, we forgot to run it. You have to run the function, so the function is actually created. Right? Now we run this again. Okay, now we get the result. Okay, so always, even it's just a define, it doesn't have any result, you still need to write, right? If you don't write, the function is not defined. Okay, so this is return, meaning I'll give the result back to you. Okay, so you can use the result in other lines of code. Okay, so this is return. And previously we did print, right? And these are both about, these are both about calculations. It gives you back a number. Okay, you can do any other types. If you have watched my previous live streaming, you know there are many different data types in Python, right? There are strings, there are integers, there are floats, there are Boolean, there are, oh, the sound is not very good. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so there are Boolean, string, integer, float, Boolean. You can also have a list, right? Let's do a Boolean. Maybe I'll do define. Okay, I want to check if a number is even number. Okay, define if even. Okay, if you give me a number, I can check for you if the number is an even number. Okay, you can see Google Colab, it has AI built in. So you just press tab. You will have all the code generated, right? So let's double check if the code generated is correct. So if I want to check if this number is an even number, I'll do number mod 2. Okay, so this percentage is not percentage, it's mod. Mod meaning I'll do number divided by 2, I'll take the remainder as the result. So if number divided by 2, remainder is 0, that means it's an even number, right? So I'll print even, else I'll print odd. Of course, you can also choose not to print, right? So this is one way of doing it. I can print is even or odd, or I can use return. Can use return. When we see even, it's always true or false, right? So instead of print even, I will return true. Instead of print odd, I'll return false. So I can either print or I can do a return. return true or false. And remember, Python is case sensitive. That means if I use capital letters or I use lowercase, it's actually two different things, right? So if I change this T to lowercase t, you can see I have an error here. Okay, and it's no longer blue color, right? Blue color meaning it's reserved word, meaning it has a special meaning. Okay, so if I change capital D, it's blue color. So Python actually recognize that this is a Boolean value true. Okay, so this function returns a Boolean value. I can also return, let's say, let's return a list. Okay, so define to create list. Okay, so I can have item 1, item 2, item 3. Okay, and I'm going to return, okay, just like this. If you give me 3 different items and you ask me to create a list, I'm going to return a list for you. So we can return a list, right? If I want to use this function, I remember we need to run this first so that the function is created. And next, I'm going to use this function, call the function, right? Create, okay, I'm using a E. Okay, let's do a E. Create list. Okay, instead of item 1, maybe I'll put different colors. Red, green, yellow. Right? So you give me 3 colors, I'll create a list to put the 3 colors in. Run this, okay, it will give you a list. Okay, let's see, what else can we do? Oh, if you watch my latest videos on TikTok and YouTube, my latest video is to calculate the sum of 1 plus 2 plus 3 all the way to 100, right? So we can create a function. I can define sum, let's call it sum 3. We already have sum and sum 2, right? Let's create sum 3. I'm going to take number 1 and number 2. At this time, instead of calculate number 1 plus number 2, I'm going to calculate all the numbers from number 1 to number 2. That means if you give me sum 3, 1, 100, I will calculate 1 plus 2 all the way to 100. So what I'm going to do is, for I in range, num1, num2 plus 1. Okay, I'll explain later why I need to plus 1 here. Okay, now before this, let's do a result equal to 0. Okay, then I'll do result plus I. Okay, return result. Okay, so what this means is I'm going to calculate number 1 plus the next number plus the next number until I reach number 2. Okay, let's run this. I'll have this function. Okay, let's call the function. Okay, let's do 1 to 4. Okay. Okay, the answer is 10. Why? What this does is I'm going to calculate 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Okay, so I'll start from the first number, plus, plus, plus until I reach the next number. Okay, so let's look at how this function does. Okay, before I add any numbers, I will set result equal to 0. Okay, then I'll have a for loop. In this for loop, I will start from number 1. Okay, I'll start with this number. Result equal to result plus I. That means I'll add number 1 to result, right? Then I'll go back to the for loop. The next number will be number 1 plus 1. So I'll add that to the result. I continue until I reach number 2. I'll add number 2 to result. Right? That's why I need to do number 2 plus 1. And remember, this is our stopping value. Okay, so we covered this before. Num2 plus 1. This is stopping value. Stopping value meaning once I reach number 2 plus 1, I need to stop the loop. I can't add it to the result. Okay, so once I reach number 2 plus 1, I stop. So my last number I added to the result is number 2. Okay, so what this for loop does is I'll add all the numbers from number 1 all the way to number 2, add it to the result so I can return. right? That's why if I do sum 3, 1, 4, you get 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, you get 10, right? Now, if I want to calculate the sum of all the numbers between 1 and 100, I'll do sum 3, 1, 2, 100. Right? So I'm adding up 1, 2, 3, 4 until 100. Now, if I run this, you get 5050, right? Or think about, what if I don't want to add up all these numbers? Okay, I only want to add up all the even numbers between 1 to 100. Okay, what should I do? We should modify this function, right? So let's copy this function. Okay, I'm going to think about, okay, how do I change this function so that I only add up all the even numbers between number 1 and number 2? So instead of call it sum 3, I'll call it sum even. Okay, sum even, result equal to 0. Okay, so I'm still adding up from this range to this range, but I'm only adding up the even numbers, right? That means before I add I to the result, I need to check if I is an even number. If I is an even number, I'll add it to the result. If I is an odd number, I don't do anything. Okay, so I'll add if. If I is an even number, that means I mod 2 equal to 0, right? If I mod 2 equal to 0, that means I is an even number, I'll add it to the result. Else, I don't do anything. Right? So all we need to do is to add an if to check I is an even number before I add it to the result. Okay, so one thing for us to take note is the alignment here. You can see the first line is define the function. Now all the rest of the lines, you can see there are 2 spaces here, right? You can also use a tab or you use 2 spaces. Okay, so this means this result equal to 0. Oops, I shouldn't drag it. Once you drag it, it will change. Control Z, okay. So this means all these lines are inside the define function because it all starts to the right of this DEF, okay? And after the for loop, you can see these 2 lines are inside the for loop, right? Because my for starts here, if starts here. So the if is inside the for loop. My result equal to plus equal to I is inside the if. But this return vertically, if you think about what vertically, this return is aligned to for, which means this return is after the for loop. So after I finish the for loop, I will return the result. So you only return the result once. Okay, so let's run this. I'll create this function. Okay, now once I create this function, I'm going to use this function, right? I'll do sum, even. Let's test it. I still do 1 for. Let's see whether it is correct. If I do this, I get 6. Why? Because from 1 to 4, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. The even numbers are 2 and 4. So 2 plus 4, you get 6. Okay, that's why it's a 6. Okay, so this is to add all the even numbers between number 1 and number 2. Now, what if I want you to add all the odd numbers between number 1 and number 2? Okay, so we just need to make some changes here, right? So Control C, copy, paste. This time, instead of add up the even numbers, I'll add up the odd numbers. That means this if I need to change, right? I need to check if I is an odd number, I'm going to add it to the result. How do you decide I is an odd number? That means when I mod 2 give you 1. Right? If I divided by 2, the remainder is 1, that means I is an odd number. When I is an odd number, I'm going to add it to the result. Right? So this will calculate the sum of all the odd numbers between number 1 and number 2. Okay, so we can try this as well. So run this to create the function. Then we can test it. Sum, odd, 1 and 100. Let's do 1 for to test it first. 1 for, I get 4 because the odd number between 1 and 4 is 1 and 3, right? 1 plus 3, you get 4. Or I can do sum, odd, okay, 1 to 100. It will give you the sum of all the odd numbers between 1 and 100. Okay, so this is also calculation. Okay, what else can we do? Let me think. What else can we do? Oh, okay. So the other video I did recently is to create a calculator, right? Simple calculator that can do plus, minus, multiplication, and division. Okay, so we can create a function to do calculation. Define calculator. Okay, if you give me number 1, number 2, and give me an operator, I'm going to do the calculation for you. Okay, so what we can do, okay, I need to check the calculator, right? I need to check the operator. Depends on the operator, I'll do different calculations. So if operator equal to plus, that means you want me to add up number 1 and number 2. So I'll return number 1 plus number 2. If operator equal to minus, I'll do the minus. Okay, let's continue. Okay. Oh, see, Google Colab is so smart. Okay, so if it's multiplication, I'll do multiplication. Division, I'll do division. But can I just leave it like this? Okay, let's say we just stop here, right? I can do plus, minus, multiplication, division. Okay, now let's test. Calculator. Okay, maybe I'll do 2, 3. I'll do a multiplication. Okay, I get 6, which is correct, right? But think about this. There is a division. If you want to do division, you must check that number 2 is not 0. If number 2 is 0, we run this function, we will get an error. Okay, so let me show you. Okay, so if I want to do calculator, okay, maybe 12, 0, and division. This means I want to do 12 divided by 0. Right? According to this function, if operator is division, I'll do 12 divided by 0. We will have an error. Let's run this. You can see 0 division error. Okay, so you can't do 12 divided by 0. Okay, which means this function gives us error. We need to improve this function. So instead of when I see a division, I'll just do the division. I'll do something here. If number 2 is 0, I'll return not defined. Okay, not defined is very not easy to understand, right? I will return can't divide by 0. Okay, else, if number 2 is not 0, I'll proceed with the division. But you can see there's a red underline here, which means there's something wrong here. Why? Because we need to add a tab here. Right? Because when do we return number 1 divided by number 2? When we see else, right? When number 2 is not 0. So we have to add a tab here so that this line is inside else. Okay, so this means plus, minus, multiplication, I can just go ahead. But when it comes to division, okay, I must check number 2. If number 2 is 0, I will tell you cannot divide by 0. Else, when number 2 is not 0, I'll go ahead with the division. Okay, so now let's run this new definition. Once you make changes to the function, you need to run again, right? So you have a new function. Now let's test this again. Do we still have errors? If I run this, what do I get? I'll get cannot divide by 0, right? Because we already checked here. Okay, so whenever you see a division or you see a mod, you need to check the second number is not 0, then you can proceed with the operation. Otherwise, you have to give a different error message. Okay, so far it's better, right? Now we don't have the error. But what if I'm using this function, I didn't check the definition of the function. I give a different operator. Okay, for example, if I'm doing this, calculator 12, 3. Okay, I want to do double star. Okay, y'all know what is double star? Double star meaning to the power of. That means I want to calculate 12 to the power of 3. Okay, if I run this, what happens? There's no result. Why there's no result? Because my operator is double star. Now, if you come back to look at the definition, if my operator is double star, it's not plus, it's not minus, it's not star, it's not division. So I only have these 4 scenarios. Double star, I don't do anything, right? You don't handle double star. That's why when you put a double star and run this, there's no result. So what can we do? Okay, we can add one more scenario. Okay, but make sure that we don't add it here. You need to align to this elif, right? Because this is scenario 1, 2, 3, 4. Now all the rest, I'll put an else. Else meaning all the rest of the scenarios, right? So meaning if you give me an operator that is not one of these, any other operators, I'll just tell you it's invalid operator. Okay, because my function is not so advanced yet. It can only do 4 calculations. If you give me anything else, I'll tell you it's invalid. Okay, now remember to run this so that you update the definition of the function. Now, let's try this again. Okay, you will get invalid operator, right? Because it will fall into this else. Okay, so even this is a very simple function. When we write the function, we must think of all kinds of possible scenarios, right? Whether it's division by 0 or whether you give me something invalid. Okay, you need to take care of all different kinds of scenarios. That is a good definition of the function. Okay, so what else can we do? Okay, let's do another function that return a Boolean. Okay, maybe I want to compare two numbers. Which one is bigger? Okay, so I'll define is bigger. Okay, number 1 and the number 2. Now you can think about how to create this function. Oops. Okay, and I'm going to create a function that takes in 2 parameters, 2 numbers. And I'm going to check if number 1 is greater than number 2. So I need to if else, right? If, you see, it's already generated. If number 1 is greater than number 2, that means it's bigger than number 2, I'll return true. Otherwise, I'll return false. Okay, so run this, right? This is the definition. Let's test this. A is bigger, let's try 12. Is 12 bigger than 13? It will give us a false, right? And A is bigger. Is 12 bigger than 11? It will give us a true. Okay, so this is another function that returns true or false. Okay. Okay, that's all I prepared for today. I know some of you just joined. Sorry, I will do another live streaming when I have time. Okay, thank you for joining me today. And that's all. Bye-bye.